Do you want to catch more fish than your friends? In this video, I'm going to share the best tips I've learned from over 10 years of fishing with a Wacky rig. I'll show you the gear you need, a few sneaky setup tricks, the best spots to fish this bait, and most importantly, how to work it in a way that gets you more bites. If you've been struggling to catch bass, this is the video that can turn it around. So let's first get started with gear. The Wacky rig is one technique you do not need any fancy gear to actually fish with. In fact, we're going to keep it so simple today that if you already have a spinning rod, you're only going to need a handful of these couple other items to catch the most amount of fish. So let's go through what I find works best for fishing with a Wacky rig. If you want to look into a certain rod and reel combo, I'm going to run through what mine is right here. This is the Cash and Element Ned Rig Z2 rod. It's designed for fishing Ned rigs, but it works amazing for fishing a Wacky rig as well, mostly because it's a 6'10" medium power fast action. So it has a perfect tip to skip all around this cover up here and make accurate casts, but it has enough backbone to set the hook and get that weed guard cleared and the hook into the fish's mouth. But if you do not have this rod, anything that is a 6'6" to a 7' medium power fast action spinning rod is going to do just fine. That is all you need for a spinning rod to fish this setup here. And then my reel, the most important thing with your reel is that you want a good drag. So I have these Shimano Sedonas that I've been running. You guys know I love these on the channel here. For 80 bucks, you can't beat them. But that super smooth drag allows when you get a fish hooked and up to the boat, especially if you hook a big one on a Wacky rig, it can pull, do whatever it needs to, and not throw the hook or break the line or do any of that stuff. Now coming down to the line and the terminal tackle, here's where there's a couple things that I highly recommend you do have if you don't already have them today. One being braided line. Specifically, I like the high vis braided line. Today, I'm trying out this Cortland Master Braid and I only had it in the brown color. You can still see it on top of the water, it just makes it a little bit more difficult. I usually use the Suffix 832 in the neon lime color. You guys see me use that all the time as well. 10 to 15 pound test is all you need there. It's actually only like 4 or 6 pound test diameter, so it fills on the spool just fine, but it actually gives you a longer, smoother cast because the line is thinner. And then I often get asked, do I worry about the fish seeing the line when I'm using a very bright colored line like that? And I don't, because I tie an FG knot here to fluorocarbon leader. I use about 10 foot to 15 foot of an 8 or 10 pound test fluorocarbon leader depending on the cover I'm fishing. I use 8 if I'm fishing around really sparse stuff. 10 is usually what I go with for a Wacky rig, just because you're usually keeping it close to cover and it can rub up against stuff and get some abrasions. So it helps me land some more fish throughout the day. But that way, the bait all the way down here is connected to fluorocarbon and they never see this braid. Really all I'm using the braid for is a strike indicator actually. It's almost like a bobber when you're Wacky rig fishing, because you can tell when a fish has picked it up or run with it, and we'll show you that when we're fishing the bait here in just a second. Now if you don't want to use braid or aren't comfortable tying a leader knot, you could use straight 8 or 10 pound test fluorocarbon on here. It would do just fine. It's just a little bit harder to see the line and tell when you have bites using a weightless bait like this. And lastly, coming down to the business end of this, you need 3 things: a hook, a ring, and a bait. And these are the only 3 that I use right here pretty much. I use the VMC weedless Nico hooks. These things are amazing. They stick fish really good. They have a wide gap. If you're using those circle Wacky hooks, the regular ones that look like octopus style hooks, I find that those have a wide enough gap, but they don't have a long enough shank to actually get the hook deep enough in the fish's mouth. You'll get a lot of skin hooked fish. They'll jump next to the boat and throw the hook. I found started using these, they stay on a lot better, and those 2 fluorocarbon weed guards are very weedless, works great through grass and wood, and it also keeps the fish on once you get them hooked, because a lot of times they will flip back over outside of their mouth and almost acts as like a keeper where the hook's on the inside of the mouth and the weed guards are on the outside holding that fish onto your bait there. It makes it a lot harder for them to throw that hook. So I use a size 1 of those. All the gear will be linked in the description below if you'd like to check any of this out. You can get any of this gear through those links down below and it would help support the channel a ton. The next thing that you need is your bait, and I use the Gary Yamamoto Senkos a lot. I also have used some other stickworm style baits as well. You can choose your favorite, but if you really wanted to get just one, again, we're keeping this very simple, catching the most amount of fish we can with the easiest setup. The Gary Yamamoto 5-inch Senko, green pumpkin, black flake. Don't even worry about any of the other colors. If you like any of the other colors, you can grab them because the fish will eat all of them. Green pumpkin, black flake, that is the #1 bait that I use pretty much all the time. If I have dirty water, I will go to the black with the blue flake, but those are pretty much the two colors in the Yamamoto Senkos. If you bought a pack of each of those, you would catch fish no matter where you're at. If you're not getting bit on that, there's probably not fish in the area or they're eating something else that day. And then lastly, one little tip to help you keep those baits on is to put a ring on your bait. And I used to use the O-rings. They work great, they catch fish, they keep the bait on just a little bit better, but I find that pulling one point of pressure will actually snap these baits in half a little bit faster than if you use something like this VMC crossover ring. It distributes that tension across a little bit wider range of the bait, and it will keep your hook perfectly perpendicular with it to get you the best hookups. It keeps these baits on really, really good. You're not gonna be going through packs and packs of these Senkos every day when they're biting really good. We fished today and I caught over half a dozen fish on one Senko by using one of these rigs right here. So it works excellent. We're gonna show you how to rig one of these up in just a second, but this is a size 6 ring, 6mm. So a 6mm ring, a size 1 VMC weedless Nico hook, and a green pumpkin or black and blue 5-inch Senko. All you need, you will catch a ton of fish doing that. I will link these down below too. You guys ask about these all the time. The G7 pliers is what I use to open these bands to be able to put my bait in there. Or the VMC version, they have one as well. They're the VMC crossover pliers. You can also just slide your bait on here because the tail will come through and then you can just pull it up on like that. Sometimes you'll rip the tails off though when they get a little fragile. I actually like just opening it up and putting it over the top, but these are just a bonus to have. You don't even need these. Let's quickly show you how to rig one of these up though. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pliers and open up my band, and then when I open up my band, I'll feed that up to about where the egg sac is. I'll go right on the other side of it, or this like slick portion. Usually that's the egg sac on a worm, but right in the middle, you want it about halfway right there. And then all you have to do is take your hook, and there are 2 channels that run on these VMC crossover rings. You can run it this way and it'll keep it parallel with the bait, or there's a little hole that goes this way. You put it in there, pop it through, and you're wacky rigged. You're ready to go. You can cast it out there, catch as many fish as you'd like. These things will do excellent no matter what time of year, spring, fall, summer. If the fish are shallow and they're around cover, they love to bite them. So let's get out on the water. We're gonna talk about where and how to fish this to catch the most amount of fish. And before we get to fishing this bait, if you could head down below and hit the subscribe button. Only 14% of you that watch the channel are actually subscribed. I'm trying to reach the 100,000 subscriber goal by the end of the year, and if you could help me out with that, that would be greatly appreciated. But for now, let's get back to the video and show you how to catch the most fish on a wacky worm. Now that we got our bait all rigged up, let's talk about some of the best places to fish this and the best conditions so that you can have the most amount of success. Now, the number one thing with conditions is that these fish really cooperate on this bait on tough fishing days. And usually those tough fishing days are calm days, sunny conditions. You can see today we have not a breath of wind out here. If you're fishing in creeks and ponds, I pretty much have this on all the time because most of those bodies of water don't really get affected by the wind as much. You can always catch fish on a wacky rig. You're fishing shallow, calm water pretty much all the time in ponds and creeks. But if you're fishing on a lake, you need to have a little bit of calm water to do this. It doesn't excel as much in the wind. Now, if you have some of those conditions like we have today, some of the best places to fish are some of the covers that we're gonna be fishing today. The one we don't have is boat docks. That's a great, great option for this. You can throw it to the posts on the outside. You can also skip it up underneath the boat docks. This is one of the best skipping baits that there is out there. It's the first bait I ever learned to skip with. I didn't learn to skip with a bait caster. I learned to skip with a spinning rod. We'll show you that and how to retrieve in just a second, but you can skip this bait up underneath cover and get it to places where fish aren't usually seeing baits. So boat docks is a great option, but today we're gonna be fishing a lot of wood laydowns in the water. That's a great place to fish this, and overhanging trees. It's the middle of summer right now. The fish are hot and they're gonna look for places to get up underneath shade that's a little bit cooler under there. So we have a bunch of overhanging trees on this bank. Again, skipping. I'll skip it up underneath all the way up to the bank, and those fish will grab it up there because they're not seeing baits up there and the water's cooler and that's where they wanna be. And the last place this works really well, not really something we have today, but if your lake has a lot of grass in it, you can fish the edges of the grass lines or lily pads or stuff like that with this bait. You can definitely throw this right to the edge of lily pads. They'll treat it as shades as such. They'll sit underneath of it. When that bait lands on the edge of the lily pads, they'll come out and ambush it, run back up under the lily pads. So because of that weedless hook, you can fish it around vegetation just as well as you can fish it around wood and other overhanging objects. The only thing I really don't fish a Wacky rig around is rock. The hook point will get stuck in the rocks, but you can still fish it around rocks if you want to. It's almost snag proof just because of how light the bait is. Even if you're fishing in big chunky boulders, when it hits the bottom, it's not gonna fall down in, it's gonna lay on top because it doesn't have enough weight to go underneath the rocks. So pretty much any cover is fair game, but for us today, it's the perfect opportunity to fish this bait around suspended fish or fish that are hanging up underneath shade pockets, just very inactive fish in general that want to just have a very easy meal floating by their face. The Wacky rig gets it done. So let's walk through how to fish it in some of these areas and we'll see if we can catch some big bass. Now, when it comes to how to fish this bait, this is really the easy part, but it's also where a lot of people can go wrong. And the two biggest things is you want to keep it next to the cover and you don't want to move it. If you do those two things, you will catch the most amount of fish on this bait possible. Now let's go ahead and show you how to actually do that so you can catch the most amount of fish. Now, whether you cast this or you skip it, you can do either one. We'll show you a cast with each. I have an overhanging bush right in front of me here. I'm gonna skip it up underneath. I'm gonna get it right where I want it, twitch that out of the branch so my line's not hanging in it, and then I'm just gonna stand here. And it seems very boring, but this is how you're gonna get your bites. That bait is just subtly fluttering down to the bottom. And if there's anything in the area, we have some pretty clear water for this lake today, they'll be able to see it and swim over and get that. I'm sitting in 15 foot of water. It's probably 6 up underneath that tree. So it can take a while for it to get to the bottom. I'm already on the bottom. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and reel up. I'll shake a couple times to see if a fish is on there. And then I'll let it sink back down again and see if one will pick it up after I entice him, after it flutters back up off the bottom and starts sinking again. Sometimes that'll draw their attention and they'll come back over and check it out. Now, after I let that sink again, I'll shake it, and if I don't have anything, I'm bringing that back in and making another cast. Now, if you're fishing in a pond or a creek or something like that, you can definitely fish it all the way back to you. But for me, I like to just put it next to the highest percentage targets and make more casts, and that's gonna lead to the most amount of fish. So me fishing it all the way out to the boat here in 15 foot is not going to catch me a lot of fish. But if I throw it up to this log that's over here, I can definitely catch a fish over there because I'm within an area that a fish should be. So again, I will let it sink slowly down to the bottom, and what I'm doing is watching my line. I have the brown on here today just because I've been testing this out like I mentioned, but this, I usually use that lime green braid, and that lime green, I can tell exactly what my bait's doing. I'll watch that line and see it slowly going out and know that that bait's sinking in the water, and then it'll go slack and come back to you when it does hit the bottom. That's when I can pick up, shake it a couple times and see if anything's there, and then let it sink again. And the biggest indicators of if you have a bite is you'll see your line either start going left, right, you'll see it speed up to start going down towards the bottom. It'll look like it's sinking really, really fast, or it'll dart forward and you'll see the whole line shake like a shock wave. That's usually a good key that you have a fish on there. And what I don't do is as soon as that line darts, just set the hook like this because you have a bunch of slack in your line. You'll get a weak hook set. What I like to do when I get that bite, let me throw one back out here so I can show you. I'll throw it up there. It's underneath that tree. It looks like I have a bite. I'm gonna go ahead and reel up to it. Maybe I'll shake it a little bit just to make sure he's still there, or I'll just kind of slowly reel up till I'm tight with it, and you'll see the line start swimming off. Now, once you're tight with the bait, you can just lean back on them and it'll get a good hook set in the roof of their mouth, in some portion of their jawbone, and usually they won't come off that way. If you just slackline them like you would a jig, most of the time they just get poked and then they don't end up coming into the boat or onto the bank. So let's put all this together. We'll walk you through how to catch some fish with it. We'll show you some of these hook sets hopefully when we're catching a couple fish, but most importantly to remember with your Wacky rig, less is more. The less you move this bait, the more fish you're going to catch every single time. You need to let this thing do the work. Just put it in the area where you think the fish are or know the fish are. Let it sit there. It is doing the work for you. You don't need to give it any action to actually catch any fish with this. So let's get to fishing and catch some fish. That's big. Oh, he's not that big. Oh, he's not big at all. Just a little guy. Look at how they get that right there. See if I can get that to focus. Behind the jawbone every time with this hook. They do not come off until you get them in the boat. Senko's ready to go again. I've caught 6 bass on that senko already with that 6 VMC crossover ring, so definitely holds the bait on there a lot better. Not a giant. We're gonna see if we can get one bigger than her, but we just skipped it up under these trees and was letting it sink. She grabbed it and started swimming it off the bank as I reeled up to get tight with her, set the hook, get her in the boat. Let's get another one. I mean, you can see on this senko right here, this thing is pretty well beat up. I've had a bunch of bluegills pecking at it. I've had 6 bass caught on this already. Had a couple others come off. You can see it's all chewed up. But that ring, because of that center pressure, not in one direction, but kind of distributed a little bit, it keeps it on a little bit better. I imagine the next fish that bites this is probably gonna rip it off, but 6 fish on one senko is pretty good. It keeps you from wasting a ton of money on lures. That size 1 VMC weedless Nico hook with that crossover ring is the perfect combo for fishing a senko. I mean, it is like the best wacky rig combo I have come across ever. I've tried tons of them over the years. I've tried the little circle hooks, as I've mentioned. I've tried all the different rings, everything you could possibly think of. This little combo right here, not only does it keep your worm on really good, but it keeps the fish on really good. And that's one of the big problems with the wacky rig is you get such a weak hook set with them because of how finesse this bait is, and you're using light line and everything like that. So this thing's been deadly for me. I've caught a ton of fish on it, and we're gonna catch us some more, hopefully, just skipping it up under these trees. That feels large. That's a better fish. And he's not big either. They're all still decent fish though. Not bad for the wacky rig. Our worm is still going strong here, catching us many, many fish with that O-ring. And you can see this one was sitting right up in that little pocket right there where that log is. There's so much cover. I know there should be a fish right there, so the wacky rig is a perfect option. You throw it in there, let it sink nice and slowly, and they'll come grab it. Still not a big one, but I don't know about you guys. I just like to catch fish when I'm out on the water. So we're gonna throw him back and see if we can get us another one. See, buddy. There's one. Little guy. The one really important thing to note, which we've been doing today, is keeping this bait extremely close to the cover. And it might take multiple casts. On a log, like right here in front of me here, you could catch a fish on the left, the right, back on that log over there. There's so much cover right here that if you just took 1 or 2 casts, you're probably not gonna catch these fish. If I'm fishing a wacky rig, most likely the fish are not in the mood to chase. So you want to get your bait as close to the cover as you can and keep it there as long as possible to catch the most amount of fish. And while this is not a gigantic one, the wacky rig catches as many fish as possibly live in your lake. It is one of the best baits that you can possibly fish for bass. But there's one little hack that I like to do with my wacky rig to help me catch even more fish. If you'd like to see what that is, check this video out right here. Hit the subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Bye, buddy.